Welcome, everyone. I'm Chris Goff, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to join this training. Now, during this exclusive event, I'm going to show you how to use lease options to control properties without spending your own money or relying on credit. And best of all, you're going to leave here with some actionable steps so you can start earning money within the next 30 days. So here's what we're going to talk about, and you're going to learn through this training. Secret number one is I want you to discover how we control properties without actually owning them or using any of your money. Secret two, we're going to learn a step-by-step system of how we structure a lease option deal that really benefits all parties involved. And secret number three is how do we close these deals and start generating income in as little as 30 days? Even if you're new to real estate and if you're an experienced investor, this is a strategy you definitely want to have in your toolbox. Along the way, I'm going to share my own aha moments and my personal journey, how I went from airline mechanic to a full-time real estate investor, because I know if I can do it, you can too. And here's the best part. Stay with me till the end because I have a very special announcement that could be a game changer you've been waiting for. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. So let's just dive in. Again, my name is Chris Goff, and my journey in real estate started in Northern Virginia. And as a kid, my dream was to work on airplanes, and I made that dream a reality by earning my degree, getting my license, and landing a job with United Airlines. But after about a year, I realized that while it was my dream job as a kid, it wasn't my dream salary as an adult. And that's when I started looking into real estate investing. And in 1999, I bought a course and I just jumped in. And I tell you, my first deal was a $450,000 townhouse on a lease option. I tell you, I messed up all the contracts and I broke even on the deal. But instead of giving up, it really fueled my passion to go all in. So I quit my job. My mom freaked out. Here I had a great job, benefits, all that stuff. And I dove into real estate full time. And after 3 months, I closed my first profitable deal and made $4,000. I tell you, I was hooked. If you didn't want to talk about real estate, you didn't want to talk to me. In my first 12 months, I closed 46 deals and I never looked back. Since then, I've flipped over 500 deals using a variety of strategies. I've trained tens of thousands of people, and I've personally helped over 200 students follow these exact same steps. And I've been blessed to become a 3-time best-selling author, a serial entrepreneur, and a founder of multiple companies. I've also been featured in almost every major network out there, but what I'm most proud of is the system I perfected, a step-by-step process that anyone can learn to succeed in real estate. And I'm excited to share this business with you and show you how to take control of your financial future, just like I did. So let's get started. All right, secret number one is how do we control properties without owning them or using our own money? Now, years ago, that would sound absolutely crazy that you could do that. Like, that's not even legal, right? Lease options provides a very unique way to not own properties, but by what I say, controlling properties. Years ago, if you think about it, a typical investor, or if you wanted to get into real estate, you had to save enough money for a down payment. You'd have to go to a bank, get a loan, put down 20%, put the money into the property, either fix it up and sell it or hold on to it by renting it out for years and using it as a retirement. And although those are great strategies, even in today's market, it would take you forever to constantly come up with the funds. It would just take so much longer. So even if you still do that, that's fine, but we want to introduce another strategy in your arsenal. And it's really by controlling the real estate. And that way you don't always have to have money or have perfect credit. But a lease option is a legal agreement that allows someone to lease a property with the option to buy it later. It's like a try before you buy arrangement for real estate. So there's two parts to this. The first part is a lease agreement, right? So someone's going to lease the property, and then we're going to have what's called a purchase agreement, which is going to specify the actual purchase of the home. So during this lease period, the buyer has the option to buy it at a predetermined price. And this is what we call a lease option agreement. Why are lease options such a game changer? People ask me this all the time. Number one is control without ownership. So you can gain control of properties without the burden of actually owning them. Little to no money down. So you can start deals without needing large upfront capital. This is going to be great for people that just did. You don't have a bunch of money. When I got started, I didn't have a bunch of money. Little competition. You're going to stand out in a niche. I call this strategy a niche business. Flexible exit strategies. You can adapt deals to fit your goals and market changes. I talk about this with my students, and I just want to share this with you because I just thought about it. You know, when the real estate market gets really hot in the news, that's when most people jump in, but that's usually like the worst time to jump in, right? And then when the real estate market goes down, what do people do? They get out of the business. They don't understand how to, you don't jump in and out of this business. You have to learn how to change strategy. Whereas some strategies favor certain market conditions, while other strategies favor other types of market conditions. You can create win-win deals. One of the best parts about a lease option is, number one, you could literally create hundreds of different lease option offers on the exact same property. And I'm going to share with you how we're going to do that. Profit up to 3 times per deal. So you can maximize your earnings on every transaction. I want you to think about this for a second. If you wholesaled or rehabbed a house and sold it, you get paid that time, right? That one time. And then you're unemployed and have to find another deal. When we structure the majority of our lease option deals, it's what we call a sandwich lease option. And that's where we're going to stay in the middle of the transaction and be able to profit in 3 different ways, which I'm going to share with you how we structure these deals here in just a minute. No need for bank financing. So you avoid the hassle of traditional financing because we're not actually buying the property. This is going to give you faster deals. We can literally close these deals very quickly. It's what you've probably have heard the term kitchen table closings, right? So in the beginning of a lease option deal, it's what we call a kitchen table closing. It's only when we go to the title company or closing attorney is when the buyer exercises their option to buy the property. You can build a portfolio fairly quickly. When you don't have to put money into properties and save up, money and get loans, you can actually do more deals. We just got to get the knowledge on how to connect all of these dots. And another really cool thing is limitless property types. I think a lot of people that have heard me teach, I talk about single family homes probably the majority of the time. And the reason I talk about single family homes is because there's just more single family homes. This strategy applies to every kind of property, which is nice. So you don't have to just look at a single family home. You may have a bunch of townhouses. You may have a bunch of condos. You may have a bunch of mobile homes. You may have different types of properties that you can structure lease option deals with. And why should you learn this strategy, right? Well, I want you to think about this, and this is probably the biggest point that I could make is prices are high and interest rates are high. We already have a supply-demand issue in the US where we don't have enough housing, number one. But why aren't people buying? Well, people aren't buying because of the interest rate, right? The cost of money is so expensive that it really, your pool of buyers really goes really small. And then at the same time, we really haven't seen a decrease in pricing now between 2020 is when it really kicked off. The pricing just really went skyrocket in a lot of different areas. And now it's just kind of holding steady. Some areas it's dipped a little bit. In some areas, it's actually increased a little bit. So if you don't have buyers, here's the point. If you don't have buyers, what do you do with the house if you're trying to sell it? And really, that's the biggest question, whereas a lease option kind of fits that. We're finding we're getting even non-qualified buyers are super excited, right, about this. But qualified buyers now are actually doing lease options because they're getting into the deal today. One thing that I tell people is that obviously you got to get the numbers correct, right? The numbers have to be right, but you could always go back and refinance an interest rate, but you can't refinance a purchase price. So as we're seeing where we don't have a large pool of buyers, we're starting to see prices drop a lot because sellers need to sell their property. And if you can get a better price, that's going to be the key, because as soon as interest rates really come down, I know they've come down a little, but when they really come down, we're going to go back to supply demand problem and the prices are going to tend to increase. So although the cost of money is cheaper, the price of the home is more expensive. So this is a perfect situation that we're in right now. This is a low risk, high reward strategy, right? I mean, you're not using cash or credit to buy real estate. I want you to think about that. What business in the world where you don't have to use your own money and get a return on that? Like, what business is there that you can do that? Just think of the actual ROI on something you don't have any money invested into, which makes this a very powerful strategy. And just really unlimited opportunities, right? There's always going to be people that can't sell. There's always going to be people that can't buy. That's just the way that it works. I don't want you to look at this business as, even though we work with these people, but if you have a home that's like, this is the hottest home in the area and you have buyers for that, then the house is going to sell. That's not really who we go after. We don't go after that traditional type of sale or that situation. Okay. These are going to be people that have had a hard time selling. They're going through a problem, and we're working with people that, hey, they just need a little bit of time to get qualified. I'm going to just share with you something I personally do. And this is an area that I personally look into for doing lease options and owner financing. So this is a pretty expensive area that I'm pulling up here. But one thing I want you to look at and pay attention to is the homes for sale. So we have 1,383 homes for sale. Now I want you to look at how many homes have actually sold. Now I've been keeping track of this for the last 6 months, and it's hovering at about the 1,400 homes for sale, and only just over 100 are selling. And you have to ask yourself, what are all these people going to do if it doesn't sell? Now, some people will just keep it on the market longer. Some people will just take it off the market. Some people will just decide not to sell, maybe stay in the home. And then others are going to probably decide to rent the home. And that's where a lease option is perfect, right? So you're getting a tenant in there, but here's the best part. It's a tenant that actually wants to buy the property versus just leasing it out. A lot of people don't really think about, if you put a tenant in a property and after 12 months will then decide to sell it. Well, the problem is that you're just assuming that the tenant takes care of the house for the next 12 months. Otherwise, you're going to put a ton of money back into the property in order to sell it. And you have to think of those things. So this is where a lease option is like a home run. And I personally like to deal with more expensive homes, but again, you don't have to. So lease options are really the ultimate strategy you need to master, because they don't box you into just one or two types of property. They really work for any kind of property, giving you limitless opportunities to succeed. And this also includes commercial buildings, guys. You know, this isn't just that single family house. I put this chart together. This chart is actually in my online training course, and I wanted to share it with you and kind of compare the strategy. So I have 4 strategies here, and these 4 strategies are really the 4 ways that you can acquire the property. Now, there are 10 times more ways to get rid of a property, but I want you to look at just acquiring it. The first line here is requires money. Now, if you go to wholesaling, generally no, it doesn't require money, but fix and flip, it's going to require money, right? So we have to pay the seller in one lump sum. It doesn't have to be your money. It could be private money or financing, but it does require money. And then we get to lease options, and it doesn't require money. Seller financing is going to require you money, even if you get in with no money down. There's still going to be closing costs, taxes, and all that stuff that's going to come involved with seller financing. And then we go to the next line, take ownership. Wholesaling, you're not going to take ownership. Now I get it. There are some people that actually buy a wholesale house, don't do anything with it, and then turn around and sell it for a little bit more than what they paid for it, which I think is absolutely crazy because you didn't have to buy it to begin with. Fix and flip. Yes, you're going to own the property, right? So you're getting the property deeded to you. Whereas in a lease option, the deed is not going in your name, and that's a deed shows who owns the property, regardless if there's financing on it or not. And then seller financing, although there are ways to seller finance a house and not get the deed, most of the time it's going to be yes. So profit centers, wholesaling, you're going to get paid one time. Now, a fix and flip property, depending on your exit strategy, you could get paid multiple times. We get to a lease option. There are really two ways to structure a lease option deal. 99% of the time, it's going to be where you're going to be able to profit three different ways. And then seller financing, again, could be multiple ways depending on what your exit strategy is. And then I go last line, is this a cash or terms deal, right? So in cash, what I mean is that we're going to pay the seller in one lump sum all up front. Whereas a terms deal is how much down, how much a month, and how long can I do this for? I want you to think about this. Almost everything purchased in the US is done on terms, because most people don't have enough cash to pay for it. And I'm not talking about going to McDonald's and paying cash. I'm talking about most people finance a car. It's how much down, how much a month, how long can I do it for? Most people finance a home that they live in. That's terms. How much down, how much a month, how long can I do this for? If you use credit cards, other than getting reward points, it's more of a terms deal, right? So you're making payments on that. So a lease option is going to be and fit in that terms category. So it's a really good kind of quick reference chart that I like to teach people with. And it's one of the reasons why it's actually in the course. All right, secret number 2. And to me, this is the coolest part because this is the fun part, actually. How do we actually structure this stuff? How do we go through these deals? This is probably the highlight, especially for anybody that works with me personally, when we are able to go through and structure deals, how I view a deal. And I really wanted to share something with you because this particular deal, well, number one, not every deal is a grand slam, right? But they have the power to completely change the way you see the game on this next deal I'm going to show you. So this lease option deal isn't the most profitable, but it's going to open your eyes to just how powerful this strategy is. And it's not always about the profit on one deal. It's really the possibilities it reveals and the lessons it teaches. And I promise you, although you're going to make a lot more money than the deal I'm getting ready to show you, this deal that I'm getting ready to show you is extremely common across the US right now. And this is a deal that is pretty cool. I didn't want to give you some easy type of, example. Let's go difficult here because I want to show you this strategy is just a home run strategy. This property is actually listed by an agent. People ask me all the time, how do we structure deals that pay the agents? There's a lot of different ways that we can do that. I'm going to share with you how we're going to do it on this one. So they started the asking price at $367,000. The current price is $315,000. So you can see there's been a big drop. The current ARV, so after repaired value, is $340,000. Now, when they listed the property, it was higher, but because things are not selling, people are having to drop their prices to sell, it has also dropped the after repaired value. This property has been on the market 437 days. It is now vacant. And I'll even extend that. They actually are going through a divorce. It does need some minor updates. That's usually a reason, that properties aren't going to sell today unless they get a great deal. Now, if they had started this price at $315,000 437 days ago, they may have sold it. But now they've had to drop the price. And, it's quite funny, when buyers look at properties and they see the property has been on the market forever, the first thing a buyer thinks about, there must be a problem with it. So then it just sits there, right? The agent commission, this is just kind of a side note here because I have to take all these pieces to craft an offer, right? So if they sold it at $315,000, a 6% commission, which again, you'd have to have a buyer's agent come in. would be $18,900 on this property. But here's the kicker. Their loan balance is $295,000. So they can't lower the price anymore. It's like, what do you do at this point, right? To top it all off, just giving you the facts of this actual deal, is the spouse wants $5,000. So the guy's taken over, and another thing is they both left the estate and they both live in different states now. But if she could get $5,000 out of the deal, I guess she won't cause any more problems, whatever it may be. I want you to think about the seller's position here. They've already lowered the price $52,000. They're paying $2,200 a month on a vacant home. This home has been vacant for 10 months. That's another $22,000 out of their pocket. They can't lower the price anymore because they don't have enough equity to sell it through an agent. They're going through a divorce. Spouse wants $5,000. They can't afford any minor updates because in their mind, they're throwing away $2,200 a month. They both moved out of state. When I take all of the actual facts, the situation of the owner, the actual location of the property, and run some basic numbers, I already know that this is a lease option deal. You can't wholesale this, right? You'd have to get it for $250,000 to wholesale it. You can't rehab it because if you can't wholesale it, you can't rehab it because you still got to buy it at a cheap price. Could you sell or finance this? Yes, that is a possibility. But here's the thing. Here's why I'm not saying you should sell or finance this. I'm basically paying full price for the house. Why would I go pay full price for the house and own it? I have my general rule of thumb. I don't want to own somebody else's problem and pay full price for it. I would much rather control it. And that's where a lease option is going to be the number one ticket here. This is a lease option where you're not actually going to stay in the middle, because if there's not much equity to be made on the back end sales price, and there's not really any monthly cash flow, there's no point to stay in the middle. So here's the offer to the owner. We're going to pay $315,000. I know the spouse wants the $5,000 to keep everybody happy. Plus we'll need her to sign off on this. Give her the $5,000. We're going to pay the $2,200 a month. I did check rental comps and they're at least $2,200 a month for this home as is. $100 incentive here, but this is really for the buyer. So we're going to carry that over. And again, this will be deducted from the purchase price. And then we're going to do a term of 12 months. So when you see me write the balance on here, what that is the sales price minus the option payment minus the $100 a month for 12 months. And that's just assuming they go the full 12 months to actually cash the owner out. Now we're going to find a buyer. We're going to set the sales price at $325,000. Keep in mind, it's still under the ARV, even though it needs some minor updates. We're going to ask $15,000 down. We're going to carry over the same monthly payment because keep in mind, we're not staying in the middle of this deal. We're going to carry over the monthly credit because we're not staying in the middle of this deal. And the term is going to stay the same because we're not staying in the middle of this deal. But I want you to look at the balance. So if we take $325,000 minus $15,000 minus $100 a month for 12 months, gives us the exact same balance that we promised the owner. And that's the key when you're not staying in the middle of a lease option deal. So you have to make sure these numbers make sense. I want to break down this profit. Number one, the seller's going to receive the $5,000 up front. Obviously, he's got to pay his spouse, but most importantly, he's going to get his mortgage payments covered, right? So I want you to remember they're spending $2,200 a month. I mean, that's literally going down the drain because they're not really earning much equity because they just bought the house a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, sorry. The seller gains more equity compared to selling it at $315,000 and paying a 6% commission. Remember, $315,000 minus the $18,900 is a lot less than our balance, which would be $308,000 when the buyer buys. So the seller is actually going to make a little bit of money on this deal. The agent's going to receive a reduced commission of $5,000. Now, I want you to keep, and this is assuming we're going to keep the agent involved here because, they haven't sold the house in over a year, right? And it's really eating up the majority of their equity where the price is, because they can't raise the price now. That's the problem. They can't go and say, well, it didn't sell at 315, so we're going to sell it for 325. They can't do that online because they're looking for a different type of buyer than we're looking for. And that's kind of the beauty of what we do here. And then, of course, you're going to receive $5,000 for knowing how to connect these dots, which is pretty powerful. And again, this is a strategy that we're taking a no equity position. There's an agent involved. It's a vacant property. The homeowner is just bleeding $2,200 a month out of this. You got to think about how long is that going to last? I could potentially see this house actually go in foreclosure because they just can't keep coming up with the $2,200 a month. So why take this offer? Think about if you're the seller, why in the heck would you ever take this offer? Well, I want you to think about this. We're actually paying full asking price. It's not all cash up front today. Receive $5,000 non-refundable down payment. Stop the bleeding. Covering the monthly payment could simply be the motivator for the owner. A committed tenant buyer, right? So they're not just renting it, because if they just rented it, they probably have to put more money into the property after 12 months. This is somebody that actually wants to buy the property. Keep the spouse happy, right? Will make more money when the buyer buys than if they sold it the way that they currently had it listed. They don't have to be a landlord, right? So our tenant buyers and our contracts are going to pay up to $500 for maintenance cost repairs per occurrence. But this is somebody that truly wants to buy. It's not somebody that doesn't care. It's a different quality type of person. And it's the only offer on the table. It's like, what would you do at this point? You have to think about when they listed this house, their expectations were totally different than they are today. So the motivation, the desperation, they're throwing money out the door. They don't want to go through foreclosure, but the property isn't selling. This is a perfect solution for anybody in this situation. I'm here to tell you there are a lot of them out there right now. And secret number 3, how do we start closing deals, right? So I want to share with you the bigger things that we need to do. Of course, there's always fine details of everything we do. Number 1, spend 90% of your time finding deals. If you follow me, you've heard me say this probably 1,000 times. That's where I want you to spend your time. Now, these could be for sale by owners. They could be for rent by owners. You think about it for rent by owner for a second. They're already willing to accept a monthly payment. Now it's just a matter of, do they eventually want to sell it? Expired listings. I just showed you, just in my area where I like to look for properties, how many houses are sitting on the market that are not selling? Expired listings are great, and also vacant properties. At the end of the day, a vacant property is costing somebody money. Even if there's no mortgage on the house, somebody's got to be paying taxes, insurance, basic maintenance, the yard. It's costing people money. So a vacant property. Now, if you get a combination of these situations, that's where you increase the motivation of the owner. Next, I want you to make a minimum of 2 offers per week. 2 offers. I want you to run the comparable sales, rental comps. Obviously, we got to check those. I want you to create an offer just like I showed you. And then we're going to put this under contract. And then we're going to get that new buyer. First thing we need to decide is, do we stay in the middle or not? This example is not an example. It's an actual real deal right now. You can see that there's no value to stay in the middle. Now, I'll also tell you that it's not the most profitable deal for me as an investor, but it's a deal that the owner needs to take. If I'm looking out for the best interest of the owner, this is what they need to do. Of course, anytime you get money from the new buyer, don't take a personal check, of course, right? You want to get a cashier's check. We'll coordinate the keys once the buyer signs the agreement. Of course, they get the keys, and then we can pay the seller what we agree to, which would be the option payment, and as well as the first month's rent. We're going to just keep doing this, right? So we're going to duplicate these processes over and over again. So even if you work full time, this is a great part-time investment strategy. And when you start closing enough deals, then you decide if you want to do this full-time or not. Chris Goff, one of the most sought after real estate educators in the country, spent his whole life helping others succeed. Bridget, $23,600 profit. Julia D here not only closed on a rental property, but at the same time also did a lease option deal that generated 10,000 on day one. So pretty awesome here. So before we dive into the next part, I just want to ask you guys something. Would you like to hear how I can help you go even further with this content? Because I have something really cool that I think is really going to help change your whole world with this strategy. And again, there's not many people that understand how to connect all these dots. So would it be okay if I share this with you now? Because here's the deal. If you stick around until the end of this session, two exciting things are going to happen. First, I'm going to host a live Q&A coaching session where you can ask me any questions that you have about real estate, lease options, or anything else that we've covered today. And second, I'm going to give you something for free just for sticking around. So does that sound good? All right, well, let's jump into my new online lease option training course, just released. And, the biggest challenge most investors face is finding a way to consistently close deals without needing a ton of upfront cash, perfect credit, or just taking a massive risk. Traditional strategies can really feel overwhelming, especially when you're just starting out or maybe trying to scale your business. And that's where so many people just get stuck. They spin their wheels, they're missing opportunities, and they feel like they're just one step behind, or you're maybe the person that really just kind of over analyzes everything. I can tell you, I have a lot of students that over analyze things. But what if there was a proven low risk strategy that could help you close more deals, generate cash flow, build long-term wealth? Well, that's exactly what my lease option course is designed to do. I came up with this solution because I've been in your shoes, right? When I first started investing, I didn't have a lot of money, perfect credit, or really a clear roadmap to follow. I made mistakes, learned the hard way, spent countless hours figuring out what worked and what didn't work. But through trial and error, I discovered the power of lease options, really a strategy that allowed me to close deals with little to no money down, create cash flow, and build that wealth. And really just getting rid of a lot of the headaches I see so many people go through. Sometimes we don't even know we're going down the wrong road until like 6 months later. It's like, how did I even end up here, right? So over the years, I've refined and perfected this system, breaking it down into simple, actionable steps that anybody can follow. And now I'm excited to share it with you through my lease option course so you can skip the guesswork and really start seeing results much faster. Now, for those of you that have followed, I can tell you that I've never, ever put a course out there until today. So let me just share with you what's in the course. We're going to go through several modules here. Module 1 is really going through the fundamentals. I don't care what it is that you do. I'm a huge believer of really understanding the fundamentals. I see so many people that, yeah, but Chris, what about this? And what about that? And what that tells me is that you just don't simply understand the fundamentals. If you understood the fundamentals, you wouldn't have those questions. Module 2, we're going to learn how to set up your business. Now, if you already have a business, that's okay. I think you're going to pick up a ton of tips in Module 2. And Module 3 is really the meat and potatoes. This is the 10 executable steps where I break this down from locating deals to crafting offers to closing the deal and how we actually get paid. Module 4, we're going to talk about scaling your business, how we use marketing, the tools that we use, how we use AI to fast track your success, how we build a power team of people around us. Module 5, you're going to learn how to overcome common challenges, stay compliant, and backed by 25 years of expert experience. This isn't something that, hey, that sounds like a cool thing to do. Let's just throw a course up there. I've been in the trenches for 25 years. I've seen a lot. So I'm compacting the 25 years of experience into this particular course. And in Module 6, actionable steps. What do we need to do next? I'm also going to give you my monthly lead generation checklist. And this is actually going to go 4 weeks. It's going to say Monday through Friday. And again, you could change up the days, but it's a checkbox of telling you exactly what to do to go find those deals. We're going to go through a couple of case studies, and I'm also going to share with you that first deal, that $450,000 townhouse that I was mentioning before. We're also going to be doing monthly live Q&A sessions. These sessions are restricted to only the people that enroll into the course, which is really great because it's not going to be public. It's just people that have invested into this course. It gives us an opportunity not only to talk about other things in different ways, but also really kind of go through your questions. What struggles are you going through? What questions do you have with maybe a contract? And that gives us an opportunity to really learn together. And I think having that community of people is really important. You're going to have lifetime access. Now, if you added up all the value, you could see $5,600. Of course, I'm not going to charge you anywhere near that, but you're going to need all of this. So this is a comprehensive lease option course. You're going to discover proven strategies, step-by-step system. It's really helped thousands of people. You're going to learn how to create a repeatable process. And I really want to stress that because when you learn it the right way, people heard me say, a lot of people, they just learn wrong. When you learn it the right way, it is so much easier to repeat. If you don't have a process or a system in place, you're really not in business, right? So by the end of this course, you're going to have a complete high-performing system tailored to your goals, whether maybe you're looking to close your first deal or you want to add this strategy to your portfolio. So if we just kind of break it all down, you're going to get all the core concepts, strategies that make lease option such a powerful tool. How to structure your business, market effectively, position yourself as a professional. This is a much needed service in the industry right now. And there's not many people out there. It's not like, if you get sick, you go to a doctor. If you broke a tooth, you go to a dentist. If you get a flat tire, you go to the mechanic. Like, there isn't enough of us out there for the problems that are actually out there. Also, proven methods to locate lease option deals, right? We got to find the deals. How do we craft those offers that really is going to be mutually beneficial? And a clear, actionable 10-step process to take lease option deals from start to finish, including deal analysis, contracts, and closings. There are 3 different contracts that you have to use, a very specific. And all of those contracts are included with, of course, a training video on how to fill them out. How do we get buyers? How do we use tools? How do we automate? I go through a session of AI. How do I use AI? What AI tool do I use? And then how do I use AI to really help speed up some of the processes to really help get your business out there and noticed? We're going to tackle common obstacles. So when that seller says, yeah, but what about this? You're going to have an answer for those. And you're going to be able to access all the checklists, case studies, all my tips that I've really compiled from years of doing this business all together. I know this is going to work for you if you do the work, but I'm going to give you a 30-day challenge guarantee. So if this isn't right for you in the next 30 days, I'll be happy to give your money back, period. Here's why I love lease options, and I think you will too. No lowball offers. Some strategies you have to, but this one you don't. We can actually pay up to full price, period. Not that we always want to pay full price, don't get me wrong, but we can pay up to full price. And as you can see, we actually did pay full price on this property here. You can get paid up to 3 times per deal. This is perfect for tired landlords, expired listings, vacant properties, and low equity owners, just like the one I just showed you. So say goodbye to rundown properties. You're going to work with quality homes in desirable neighborhoods, as long as the home is livable. That's what I like to say, because remember, I don't want to put money into a property I don't own. So these need to be livable, because if we're going to have a lease agreement up front, guess what? It needs to be livable. No cash, no credit, no problem. You're not buying properties. That's the key. And really minimal competition, especially with wholesaling and rehabbing. Here's Gary Graham here, him and his father here, made $32,000 on this deal. This one point I wanted to make, which is so cool. It's kind of near the end, so It's in that second paragraph, helping her find stability when no one else would. You know, it's one of those businesses just makes you feel good when you can connect all the dots because it solves a problem. This is such a unique strategy that you're working with nicer homes, you're helping people out from the seller side, from the buyer side. It's because you have the knowledge, right? Knowledge is power. All right, so here's what's included. You're going to get unlimited online access. You're going to get hours. I have spent so much time putting this training together from start to finish. I'm not leaving anything out. You're going to get what I call our after repaired value form. You're going to get our business preparation checklist, our buyer's list questionnaire form. These are the questions you need to ask your buyers to build your buyer's list. You're going to get the lease option contracts. There are 3 different contracts. I have them labeled, and they're used for very specific positions that you're in through a lease option deal. You're going to get our marketing letter. You're going to get our buyer and seller benefit sheet, so you don't always have to remember everything in the beginning. I'm going to have this spelled out for you. So if you're talking to somebody, you have those benefits right in front of you. Our lease option offer form. How do we actually craft a lease option offer? You're going to get my lease option executable chart. I have literally had people try to steal this from me at live events. I am not kidding. It is what I call the GPS of real estate. It is a quick reference chart that people laminate this stuff. You print it out, you can have it laminated, put it on your desk. And this is a quick reference chart of telling you exactly what to do next. That is the key, is understanding what to do next. You're going to get our marketing matrix chart, our monthly lead gen checklist, our neighborhood matrix chart, our flyer, property research form. Our property research form is our questions on how we qualify sellers. Property inspection form, our real estate method chart. You're going to get the rental application, game plans, and you can access this on any device as long as you got internet. I'm also going to give you some bonuses. The first one is my Sell Smarter course. I'm going to teach you some advanced selling techniques so you can close more deals. And then on top of that, my negotiation course for lease options. Okay, so how do we really negotiate those terms? What is it that we say? How do we understand situations and say the right things in order to create the best offer? And of course, I'm giving you access to our monthly Q&A. You see, it's over $697 worth of bonuses. So this program, you can see the total value with the bonuses, $6,300. Regular price for this is $1,497, but we're doing a special launch price of only $497, guys. But here's the kicker. It expires September 30th. So that's $1,000 off just right there. And the contracts are worth more than the $497. I can tell you that right now. So if you're ready to master this, all you have to do is go to our reiremix.com. You can click on the store up at the top menu. You're going to see the lease option course. You're going to click on that, and then you can enroll through that next page and get started. Love to see you on the inside of this training course. Now, just a couple of things on why I feel my course is different. Number one, it's very practical. It's so detailed in the specifics of just in the trenches knowledge. Like if you haven't walked down these paths and been in these deals, you really can't explain it the way that I think I do. Proven 10 executable steps. So this is a system that I have started, created, and perfected over the years of exactly what you do first, what you do next, then this, then that. If you used to have limited funds, this is a great strategy to really get started with. Of course, I've told you I've got 25 years of experience, and this is really packed into one course. I've never, ever put a course out there in 25 years. And people kept asking me, hey, Chris, you got to come up with the course. I'm tired of trying to take 1,000 of your training videos and putting it all together. I need this course in front of me. And I've literally spent the last 12 months to do this. So you're going to get everything that I use to do this business. You are getting everything right in front of you. And just a quick message, 25 years ago, I took a leap of faith. A $48,000 job. I thought that was pretty good back then. as an airline mechanic to dive into real estate. I can tell you I was lost, confused, overwhelmed, trying to figure out the next steps. And I made a ton of mistakes. I wrote the contracts wrong. I focused on the wrong things. But again, I stuck with it and finally made some money on that first deal. And that really changed everything. I tell you, I was hooked from that point. It was like, get out of my way. I didn't want to listen to anybody that was negative because I can tell you, all my friends were like, oh, you don't want to jump into that business. I promise you, they're not saying that anymore to me. They're asking, how'd you do it? Show me how you do this stuff. I really was just in my own world, just my own brain of saying, I'm going to go do this. Get out of my way. I don't, say no. I don't care. I'm going to go do this. It has worked out very well. And now it's your turn. So if you're ready to really take control of that future, start your real estate journey. Let me show you how to do it. That's the biggest thing. Don't wait because your first deal could be right around the corner. Look, this is your chance to join the master lease option at a very special launch price of just $497. This program is designed to help you finally learn a system that you can duplicate over and over again so you can make money. You're going to help a lot of people. You're going to live that life you truly want. But remember, this price is only available to the end of the month. And after that, it's gone. So if you're ready to take control, start building the life you deserve, now is the time to act. So let's make this happen together.